76's Monster Mash!
Return of the Living Dead. So when the movie begins, basically it shows the president talking about something on the phone, some kind of canisters or something that the army misplaced or something and they can't find them. He's basically telling them that they better find the canisters. So after the president scene's over, it cuts to a warehouse where you meet the two main characters pretty much of the film. They're pretty much the comedic relief of the entire film, like throughout the whole movie. They're hilarious. And they both go through a lot of shit together, which is the older guy's name's Frank. And then you got the younger guy, Freddy, played by the one and only Tom Matthews. And Bert, which is the father from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, you know, so it's got a really awesome cast. They work in this warehouse where there's a bunch of really macabre shit that they keep there, like human skeletons and split dogs. You know, they have cadavers, all kinds of weird shit up in this place. And it's basically Freddy's first day, and Frank's giving him the rundown and showing him, like, everything, where everything's at, and showing him around the warehouse, basically, you know, training him pretty much. Frank brings Freddy into the office, and he gives him this huge spiel about how the army fucked up and sent these weird canisters to their warehouse. He asks him if he ever seen the movie Night of the Living Dead, and the guy's basically like, "Shaw, the one where the corpses come alive and start eating people," or something like that. And then Frank says, "You know, that movie was based on a true case. The army came after George Romero, the creator of the film," is what he says, and basically told him that if he didn't change the facts around, you know, they'd sue his ass off, and that's his exact words. He asks Freddy if he wants to see the canisters, you know. So, of course, Freddy's like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I want to see them." And he brings them down into the basement where they're at, and he shows them the canisters. Like, he wipes a little window down with some Windex on the top of the canister, and you can clearly see that there's a corpse in there. And Freddy says something like, "There's bodies in there?" You know? Something like, you know, you better watch out that you don't bust it open or something on accident trying to clean it off like that, you know? And then Frank says, you know, "There's nothing to worry about. These canisters are made by the Army, you know, Corps of Engineers or whatever." And he's like beating on the side of the canister. And all of a sudden, I guess it cracks open and a bunch of smoke comes out and they both inhale it. You know, they pass out. Okay, so basically after they wake up, after they get hit in the face by the toxic smoke or whatever, the zombie smoke, quote unquote, they go back upstairs and a bunch of really weird, crazy shit happens. Like, they find out that the gas basically caused all the dead shit inside the warehouse to come back to life. Like, it reanimated the split dogs and the cadavers and like some dead butterflies, like on a frame, and their wings are flapping, you know. It's really crazy. They realize that one of the cadavers inside the freezer, like the walk-in freezer where they keep cadavers in there, you know, and one of the cadavers is alive and it's like banging on the door. They call Bert and he's like, "Bert, Frank, we have a little bit of a problem here." And then Bert ends up coming down to the warehouse, you know. He's like, "What the hell did you pull me out here for, you know? I'm about to go on vacation with my family. What the hell is going on, you know?" Bert hears the cadaver, like, banging on the door, and he's like, "What the hell is that?" You know, and Frank basically tells him, you know, that it's a cadaver and it's alive and all this shit, and he's like thinking that he's crazy at first, but then he's like, "Okay, well, open it up." They end up ultimately tackling it to the ground, and then chopping its head off with a hacksaw. They basically chop up all the body parts and put it in plastic bags. They bring it over to the mortuary, and Ernie's in there. Bert tells Ernie that it's a bunch of rabbit weasels in the bags. And so essentially he asks Ernie to use his crematorium to burn the so-called rabbit weasels, you know what I'm saying, and get rid of them. And Ernie's just not about it. He's like, you know, you can't just burn animals alive and all this shit, you know, it's cruel. And he's like, well, why don't I just take them out into the parking lot? You know, he's got a gun at this point in his hand. He's like, why don't I just take them into the parking lot and put them out of their misery, you know, talking about shooting them. Bert's like, well, you see, I don't think that would really work. And then Ernie's like, well, what are you talking about? Why? And then Bert tells him, you know, it's not rabbit weasels in the bags. Bert opens up one of the bags to show him, you know, because it's probably best seen than explained anyway. So he opens up one of the bags, and they're both crouching over it, and it's an arm inside the bag, and the hand comes out and tries to strangle Ernie. You know, they end up burning the body parts in the crematorium. Ernie is like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll help you. This is insane, but I'll help you, you know. I don't know what the hell else to do in this kind of situation. You know, I've never seen anything like this before. Okay, so they cremate the body parts, and the smoke from the body parts goes out of a smokestack or something at the top of the crematorium, at the top of the building. The smoke's escaping. The smoke goes up into the atmosphere and basically rains back down on the graveyard nearby. So there's a really cool scene where all the zombies are coming out their graves and all this stuff. It's really awesome, very epic. Okay, so I forgot to mention that one of the main girl characters in the film is named Tina, and she's Freddy's sister. Tina goes to the warehouse to go get Freddy, and nobody's there. She goes down into the basement, and she sees this giant, like, skeleton zombie guy covered in, like, thick black tar or something. And he's actually called the Tar Man, like in the credits. His name's the Tar Man or Tar Man. And he tries to get her, you know, and she hides inside of a locker, you know. Okay, so Tina's friends come over to the warehouse to check on her pretty much, you know. And they go down into the basement where she's hiding in the locker. And the Tar Man guy's got this chain rigged up trying to pull the door off the locker so he can get to Tina. And Suicide is one of the main characters too, kind of, in a way. He's the punk guy with the leather jacket, you know, and he's got like a chain connecting from his nose to his ear or some shit. I really feel like The Walking Dead's Negan was totally inspired by Suicide. Really cool. Suicide basically pulls down this sheet, and the Tar Man's standing right behind him, and Tar Man grabs him by his head, you know, and he's like, brains or whatever, and he grabs him by his head and takes a huge chunk out the top of Suicide's head. Bert knocks the Tar Man's head off with a fucking baseball bat. Bert even says, I'm gonna knock his goddamn block off. So badass. Well, I don't want to spoil too much for you guys, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Great special effects, great makeup effects. It had an amazing soundtrack. Just all around, really awesome zombie movie. So if you like zombie films, I definitely recommend you check out Return of the Living Dead. Scott86, I'll see y'all in the next episode of Monster Mash.
More brains.